Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Today's Elko Live comes in advance of the regular Elko County Commission meeting today, and we're very pleased to have joining us in studio our new commissioner, Brian Gale. And Brian, I guess the last time we met here, it was when you were sitting alongside Jay Dalton, and I just remember what a cordial visit that was. And actually, I've had people come up to me and say how much they enjoyed it when you asked him to do his auctioneer bit. So that's a memorable radio moment.
Well, yes, Lori. Yeah, it's hard to hang around Jay without having a good time.
Well, and it is nice to know because you both come from the same community that I'm imagining that, you're still on friendly terms after the election.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So Brian is visiting with us in advance of our regular meeting that opens today. And there's a few things on the agenda, but what I was saying to Brian is that perfectly timed because he signed up for the radio show today. You may not have known that your big agenda item would be on the agenda today. So I thought we could start with that. Were you surprised to see it land there so quickly?
Well, the county staff is really on the ball. I was surprised about that. I did not know how competent. I mean, I didn't assume they were incompetent, but I didn't realize how quick they are. I brought it up at our last meeting, and they're, Johnny on the spot, and they've got it right here on the agenda to talk about.
So we'll skip around just a little bit because, again, it's probably one of the bigger agenda items. Honestly, it's the only one I've really seen generate much talk in the community, and this is consideration of a request from Commissioner Gale to place a question on the next election ballot regarding the election process for county commissioners. So as it is now, county commissioners are elected at large by all qualified electors of the county. So although you come from districts, Brian, for example, if you wanted to talk about the district you represent, you have an idea that the commissioners could be elected from just their district as well. Do I have that right?
Yes, well, initially we had 3 commissioners in the county, and some years ago, they changed that to 5. And according to the NRS, when they changed from 3 to 5, they also put on the ballot to have these have the commissioners elected by according to their district or according to the countywide. We chose at the time, I guess. I wasn't here for it. We chose at the time to have the commissioners elected by the entire county. And to me, it seems a little, un-American is a strong term, but a little contrary to how we generally do things. To have our United States representative elected by the entire state would mean that Las Vegas would be able to, oust Amodei, just like that. We would have almost no say. So I wonder why it is that downtown Elko has the opportunity to choose the commissioner for, West Wendover.
And let's talk about that, the area that you represent, right, Brian? Because I think people think of typically just the ranching community.
Oh, heavens. Each of the commissioners by law represent pretty much equal number of people. And so in order to collect an equal number of people from the ranching communities, it's probably about 95% of the county is who I represent. Geographically, it's almost all the county, but that includes Wendover, Wells, Jackpot, all the way up to Mountain City, out to Wild Horse and Ruby Valley, Star Valley, Clover Valley, just about Jarbidge, just about everything besides Elko, Spring Creek, and Carlin. Osino, Osino and Rindon I also don't represent, but everything else in the county, the 4th largest, geographically largest county in the nation, I represent them. So I plan on doing a little bit of driving.
Yeah, so as Commissioner Gale is explaining, it's not based on geography, obviously, it's population. So it's very sparsely populated in those rural outlying communities. And so in order to have enough people to represent a district, for example, Commissioner Rex Steniger's district would include the Spring Creek area, so it's a little bit easier for him to pick up the numbers when it comes to population, right, Brian, to help illustrate what we're talking about.
Yes, he has, if he wants to have a meeting with every single one of his constituents, he could have a pretty big meeting, and about 7,000 people could come right to Spring Creek. If I were to do that, where would I put it? In Elko, because that's the center of my district. But my district is actually a big donut around Elko.
So hopefully that will help listeners understand more why Commissioner Gale brought this to the attention of the county. And we do know our Commissioner Travis Gerber lives in Spring Creek. Rex Staniger lives more, I think, toward the Lamoille Pleasant Valley area of that Spring Creek community. And then Commissioner Delmo Andriozzi lives in city limits. John Carr also lives in one of those sort of straddled areas of the Elko Summit area. So we can see that a lot of the representation is probably clumped up in some of the more populated areas, if that's a good way to put it.
Yes, right.
All right.
And you have generally, I assume, people who live closer to each other, it's been my experience, have different views from people who cannot throw a rock and hit their neighbor. Like me, I have to drive for a couple miles before I run into somebody. So my bigger concern was, Jay Dalton was, he's not an unknown person in the county, and he's actually in a few of the precincts, he whooped me handily. Now, it wasn't enough to take the district, but if Jay wanted to actually unseat me now as an incumbent, he'd have to run a campaign through the entire county, which is, in my estimation, it would be impossible for a Democrat to defeat a Republican on a countywide scale. So who does that benefit? That benefits the incumbent. Well, now I'm the incumbent. I want to relinquish that benefit, and I want to say, listen, let's take it district by district, because a person could actually handle a campaign over one small district. It's not a very lucrative position where I'm in. And so to pay for a campaign to cover the whole county would be quite difficult. I want to relinquish that, the hold, I guess, and make the position more responsive to the voters. They always say, well, if you don't like who's in the office, just vote the bums out. But unfortunately, that doesn't actually almost ever happen. And so if we took it district by district rather than countywide, the elections, that would give each district a little more control over who was in. To get somebody into office the first try, they can sneak in by whatever means. But then I would like to have them more responsive to the districts, and having the election by district level affords that.
Talking with Brian Gale, he's our county commissioner. Again, a first term for him, and bringing this issue now of what we're understanding is one of equity. And based on just what you said, not getting political here, but wouldn't it make more sense to simply make these offices nonpartisan? Because as you mentioned, both of you well-known ranchers, well-liked in your communities, and one's an R, one's a D. So folks in Elko County overwhelmingly go for the R. Do you think it's important that these are partisan positions?
Yeah, I actually do, because the label, though I do not agree with everything that the R behind my name stands for, it does very adequately describe the direction I'm going to be going in. So I think if it were nonpartisan, it would be even more difficult to oust, say, for the school board, for instance, is nonpartisan. And there are some partisan issues, I guess, that the school board deals with, but ultimately they're just worried about education. hopefully that's a nonpartisan deal. But to unseat a nonpartisan, you can't even do that in the primary. So they're even more protected. Then it's incumbency is all there is. So to, particularly with the school board, to unseat 1/7, one member on the school board, it would take a countywide election to take one member off. And there's no way somebody could unseat an incumbent on the school board if there were an incumbent that needed unseating.
And that's one thing Elko County is not known for, is big spending on local elections. And as you said, it would have to take a new strategy to market to the entire Elko County. So what if we took it one more step, and rather than the nonpartisan, but what if we opened the primary so that more folks could simply choose who's in the running?
Yeah, so that was on the ballot this last election, and I kind of like the idea. The question that was on the ballot had merit to me, but Nevada decided not to do that. So we'll play the game that we have. Play the game. It's not a game. It's the real life. But we will work under the regulations that we're given.
So what do you think might happen today, Brian? Do you think that some folks might actually, come out and say, hey, this makes sense? I mean, again, really short timing, only 2 weeks notice.
Right.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about it?
Well, I don't anticipate this being finished today. And firstly, it's just a question whether or not we put the question on the ballot. So it'll actually be decided the next time there's an election. I would actually be quite surprised to see anybody come out to talk in favor or opposed to it, because this is just an idea that I had. I mean, I haven't heard it from anyone else, and people I've talked to have mixed opinions on it. They see the benefit of having the commissioner represent the entire county, and they see the benefit of each district being able to choose their representative. And
I guess, too, just to follow up on that, what do you think maybe these outlying communities would like from Elko County? Do they feel underrepresented as it is? I know I'm cheating a little because I think that was a campaign issue for you. So,
well, yeah. So, just looking at the results of the last election, for instance, I was quite surprised to see that Jay Dalton won. Almost 4 times as many people voted for him in Owyhee from me. So I guess I have some ground to make up in Owyhee the next time I get up there. I don't know how I'm gonna to get him to like me, but Owyhee would have a difficult time being represented here in the strongly Republican area. Now, there are some issues that we deal with Owyhee that do not have any partisanship at all. They're getting a new school now. That's not a partisan issue. As a matter of fact, that came from the state legislature, and that's a big deal.
So, looking at these different precincts, Brian, I know you've drilled down because obviously this has been on your mind. How did your Democrat opponent do within, say, the city or Spring Creek, those 2 big population centers?
It was approximately so. In our district, I got about 1.5 votes for each vote that Jay got. So even in our district, I still won.
Absolutely. I'm looking at that final down there. Total votes for all precincts, right? Uh-huh. Yeah. So 74% for you, Brian. So
yes, that's countywide.
Countywide, exactly.
Countywide.
Yes.
So I don't know what the percentage. I didn't do the percentage, but I'd have about, 1.5 would be so. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd have 3. No. I have 2/3 of the votes in our district, but 3/4 of the votes in the county. So obviously the rest of the county, it was about 3-1 for me.
And again, a presidential election year, so healthy turnout at about 14%. But yet, I know I'm always sort of blown away thinking, why don't more people who are able to, eligible, right, vote. 14% doesn't sound great.
No,
I think we're
it
both
sure doesn't.
we're pretty high on voting and participation. I get that feeling.
Well, I don't know if I'm super opposed to having poor voter turnout if there's poor voter understanding.
Good
I don't
point.
need. I am not interested in a whole bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, just going and putting their mark down, just voting just to say they voted. I mean, I'd just as soon have people really study the issues out and be well educated and actually make a choice. So instead, in our system, it's not a direct democracy. Of course, direct democracy would have everyone say nothing would happen, basically, because everyone has to agree. In our system, we trust the people that we represent. And that's part of the reason why I would like to release, I guess, some of the power of incumbency that naturally comes to me, because I would like to have every position more responsive to the voters.
Brian Gale is our Elko County Commissioner, and what is your district again? You're in District 1. Thank you. And there's only one social media comment, and you probably saw it, and I was just going to see what your response was to it. And it's easy to read because it's not nasty, which is always nice, right? No, I haven't
seen that yet. Go ahead and read it.
Splitting the county into districts is just going to make commissioners fight for their own area instead of working for the whole county. Right now, they have to answer to all of us, and that's how it should stay. This might work in bigger cities, but it's a bad idea for a rural county like Elko. We need commissioners who see the big picture and not just their little slice of the map. So that's one opinion.
Yeah. Right. Yes, and that is having the commissioners represent the entire county that is the strong argument against. But we're already split into districts. I mean, you cannot elect someone to represent District 1 who lives in District 2. So that split is already made. I just don't understand why it's halfway made. That District 3 gets to vote for who represents District 1. Why do we make the split in the first place?
Right, because if you swung the other pendulum the other way and you simply said, all county, we didn't have districts, then you would likely get the majority of representatives from, say, the city of Elko or Spring Creek, and then you'd have no representation.
Right,
yes. So.
But somebody did ask me, well, so when you come up for election again, I'm not in your district, I won't be able to vote for you. I was like, well, yes, I guess that's true. My bigger concern is how much does one vote count if there were someone in District 4? I don't know whose District 4 is. If there were a commissioner in District 4 that I really wanted to see gone, I would have a lot more ability by contributing monetarily to the campaign of his opponent, where I'd never be able to make a campaign big enough to cover the whole county.
Well, you have given a lot of food for thought, Brian. So I'm glad that, again, today was your day to come on the radio show and that it coincided with this being on the agenda. And as you said, if the county commissioners, basically it is for possible action, I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion. And this is just to place it on the next election ballot. It would require a ton of education, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of the idea is hopefully when people vote, they demonstrate that they have made a choice, and the choice is what they really want, rather than just, A, B, A, B.
So, Brian, before we switch gears, I just want to make sure that you got to represent everything on that particular issue that you wanted to.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that pretty much covered it.
Okay. Commissioners meet at 1:30 this afternoon in the Nanini Administrative Building in Suite 102. Other things that kind of jump out on the agenda for you, is there anything that you've been working on especially?
Nothing like that one, but this is just the very beginning of the discussion for putting it on the ballot.
Are you concerned about, say, some of the grants? I know grant application approvals are on the agenda today. Get My Ride is up for some matching money. Some of these are federal funds. They might come through the state.
Yeah, Lori, that's interesting you bring that one up, because that one did come to my mind. I tried to arrange a ride for an elderly friend once with Get My Ride, and it seems like they're 10 days out or something like that. And I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 10 days, let alone my friend. So how on earth are they supposed to plan their whole schedule around a service like that? I feel like taking it away from a government program, and if we use the money to subsidize something like what's the Uber, or
Lyft or Uber.
Yes,
something.
Lyft,
Okay.
Uber, something like that. I would rather see that. Of course, that's probably not a possibility, and I'm not super familiar with the Get My Ride thing, but my experience with public transit here in America is that our money would be better spent giving everyone who rides it a compact car, rather than trying to keep somebody employed running the system. That's just my experience. Now in Europe, nobody actually needs a car, because you can get around on buses, trains, what have you. But out in rural America, it's just not possible like that.
Yeah, there are so many challenges. And as you mentioned, Brian, if your friend does live, say, in rural Elko County somewhere, it's kind of scary, especially if someone is elderly or needs medical assistance. And we know it's hard even to get EMS services,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you might think it's scary, but living in Ruby Valley, we know it's going to be a long time before the ambulance gets there. And so quite a few of the fellows on the fire department went through medical training. The EMS became EMTs, and that's the main reason for it, so that we can handle our problems. So I'm not so afraid of the people living out not getting what they need, because the people living out there know that they have to rely heavily upon their neighbors, and their neighbors rely heavily upon them.
They're self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about self-sufficient entirely, but yeah, they do lean on each other.
Okay. Also on the county commission agenda today, there's a watch list for a lot of legislation. I don't know if that's one of your hobbies, but you're welcome to pick out what you've been eyeing.
Yeah, the daylight savings time exemption for Nevada.
Which is funny, and tell us why.
Yeah, well, so Ruby Valley does not change. So we stay, this is a little different. We stay on Utah time year round. If we went to Pacific time for the winter, the sun would be down almost before breakfast. I mean, it feels like that, living right at the base of the mountains. Sun goes down a little quicker. But the daylight savings time exemption for Nevada, that bill says that we'll stay on Pacific time, which Pacific time is defined by the meridian. I think it's the 115th, or I can't remember which one, but the meridian runs just to the west of the border there by Lake Tahoe. That's where the meridian defining the Pacific time is. And I thought, well, why can't we go to Mountain Time? And we're a lot further from Mountain Time than we are from from Pacific Time. So yeah, it would be nice if we just did away with the daylight savings time, because I don't think it actually accomplishes what it was meant to accomplish anyways, and it's just kind of a pain that we can do away with.
And you're able to get the work done on the ranch.
I'll just have to wake up extra early.
And probably the kids too, right? Yes.
Right.
Brian Gale is our county commissioner, and we're discussing in advance of the county meeting one thing that's not on the agenda, because I know it just landed on my desk, but that is this your first, the county commissioners are being sued. Is this a first for you guys?
Oh, fantastic.
I know. Yeah.
Sued by whom?
So these are property owners in Spring Creek, and they have filed a suit in 4th Judicial District Court, John George, Jim Connolly, and Scott Wilkinson, about the planning issue about the subdivision.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, I don't know any. Well, I do know some about that, and I guess it doesn't come as much of a surprise. I'm not super nervous about it.
Yeah, we have representation, obviously. Rand Greenberg will probably advise you.
Yes, well, actually, it's the district attorney who is the representative for the Board of Commissioners, and Rand is an assistant. And so, yes, he handles things nicely. He's really competent.
There's a lot of reading here, so just so you know, it's not something I've gotten through yet. I guess it was just filed on Friday, so yeah. So I think everybody's
thanks for bringing that
catching
to my
up.
attention.
Yeah, and it will probably be mentioned, maybe during remarks. Well, with enough time that we have before we send you safely downtown to the county courthouse meeting room in the administrative building, I want to make sure that we got to what you were hoping to. It doesn't have to be on the agenda, Brian, but you're an ideas guy, so I imagine you've always got something brewing.
Well, thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to visit. Yeah, no, there's nothing else that we haven't discussed that is of particular interest to me.
Well, thanks for helping get the Fair Board propped up. From my observation now, attending those meetings more regularly, Brian, it seems as though I don't think they felt as supported as they needed to be, right? Some might say they needed supervision, but sometimes you make decisions in a vacuum, or you feel like you are, right?
Right.
So hopefully...
Well, about the fair, there's nothing I looked forward to as a kid more than the county fair. And I just absolutely love it. I really do. I think we might be entering, we're probably well into a time period that is different from the fair. Initially, the fair did not represent kids raising livestock. It represented kids learning how to survive in the world just like their parents do. I mean, it wasn't just projects. They were actually learning how to do agriculture. Well, right now, I'm a 2%er because I'm involved with ag, but not everybody is. So I think it might be wise to have things like battle bot competitions at the county fair, something that represents a larger percentage of what kids will actually be doing as they grow. I haven't talked to anyone, so don't tell anybody I said that.
Okay, we won't.
Lori.
It's a secret. Yes.
Very good.
All right. No, I think that kind of forward thinking is important to preserving, as you said, the fair. Whether, I love to go to see all the home arts and the photography and the things that people, create, children and adults and neighbors in my community, the flowers they grow, just it's extraordinary. And yes, the livestock auction is exciting, and Jay Dalton is the auctioneer. And we know that for a lot of youngsters or youth who've raised those animals, that's something that they intend to do when they graduate college, or it helps pay for college. So,
yes, right.
Yes.
It does. The youth use that as a fundraising thing, and it does teach responsibility. But not every kid has the opportunity to raise a steer for a couple of years before they take it to the fair. I mean, it's just not possible. But every kid can get on the internet and learn how to code, maybe drive a robot around.
That is really interesting. And I know the convention center is actually working on something like that. Brian, I don't know if that's one of your liaison duties, but to the ECBA, maybe in the future to help form a new event. But I do think as a community, we should work hard to preserve and create the fair of the future, right? Because I know there are concerns with building a new livestock arena. The rodeo, it's going to be huge. There'll be concerts and events and monster truck, all the things. But at the same time, there are a lot of people that don't want to lose the small town charm either in the smaller events, right?
Right.
So.
And here, ag will always be a big deal. It's not 2% of Elko County that's involved in agriculture, but 2% of America is. So we will always have agriculture in our fair, but we do need to prepare our youth for the future that they actually will have.
Brian, thank you very much. And I think with that, we took you right to the top of the hour so you can get downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Look forward to our next visit with Elko County Commissioner Brian Gale. And we appreciate listeners, you joining us for our show today here on KELK.